Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see you here today. This is Susan Serra, and this is the Google Plus broadcast, The Modern Kitchen. So today I have a very special guest who is Sarah Reep, and we will get to Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are things?
Hi. Good to have you here. And we will get to Sarah in a moment. I just want to say a couple of words. I hope everyone had a very peaceful Memorial Day weekend. We're now in the unofficial start to summer, so lots of great outdoor activities happening and lots of different foods to cook in our kitchens and maybe thinking about outdoor kitchens. In fact, which brings to mind next week we have a very special show on outdoor kitchens and how they look and how to design and plan them and so forth. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. As I said, I'm Susan Serra. I'm a certified kitchen designer, certified aging in place specialist. I am the kitchen and bath moderator of this interior design community. And we have these weekly shows of the Modern Kitchen. And my blog is thekitchendesigner.org. And I also am a kitchen expert on Google Helpouts. So that's a little bit. And Sarah is here. Sarah Reep is here. Sarah Reep is an icon. Sarah is the director of designer relations and education at Masco Cabinetry. And Sarah has held various positions within Masco Cabinetry for many, many years. She is an accomplished designer. She is an expert on generational issues and all types of, she touches everything in kitchen design. And Sarah, why don't you may do a little bit better job than I do of introducing yourself and giving us a little more information. So tell us what your role is and what you do mostly.
Thank you, Susan. I am the Director of Designer Relations and Education for the KraftMaid brand. I'm based here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm thrilled to be with you today, Susan. You do an awesome job for our industry and pulling us all together, and I'm delighted to be here because I have just spent weeks on the airplane traveling all over the United States learning about designers, the consumer, and the marketplace, ready to share.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. And you have shared a few documents with me, which I will put up in a little while. So you do travel quite a bit. I know you and I are in contact now and then, and you're always on the road. And one of your primary functions is you're a thought leader for the industry. And what goes along with that is to sort of look at behaviors, what is happening not only for the consumer per se, but for generations of consumers. And part of your goal is to see what's happening out there and see what people want. And what and why don't you share with us some of the recent trends you've been seeing in the marketplace?
Great, thank you, Susan. Basically, probably no surprise to anyone on the call that white is a significant color in the palette for consumers. A white kitchen and a raised panel, a transitional look, a miter door, a flat panel, white is certainly significant in the paint family. I think consumers are looking for that fresh, light, open interior, but that means as it's peaking, there's new colors to come.
Now, Sarah, I'd like to interrupt you right there because I have heard the rumblings and undercurrent of white perhaps losing its stature as maybe not so quickly, but I've heard that maybe white's taking a downturn. What do you think about that?
I would say that you're right, Susan, but where it's not affecting yet is that mainstream consumer that's out shopping for a kitchen today. What we're seeing, and designers are starting to identify this as well in the marketplace, that additional neutral values to dark stain values, and then that'll bring an openness for even warm stain colors, as we're not going to stay in one color very long. We're going to mix it up as everyone's trying to find their own style. That's really one of the biggest news today. It's not just one thing that's going to last. It's going to be a variation and very personal with the technology and web tools that consumers have today.
You know, that I want to step in. That is fascinating to hear that, because that is what I have thought actually for a few years, which then the question becomes, well, then doesn't that make it a little bit more difficult to spot trends? Aren't you looking a little at another level of micro trends or peripheral trends? Isn't it a little more difficult?
I think it will be interesting to spot trends, and it will take that same learning and skill set, but you'll have to have probably a wider view, because just as the TV shows and microbreweries and cable TV stations, there's so many choices today. I think consumers are going to test and try and look wider than they did before, but when it boils down to it, there'll be a collection of items that work really well together, and that will drive the market. For example, a new color is a color similar to our craft-made Gray Loft or Pebble in the gray family. It's doing very well. It's trending up. Certainly white is the king of right now, but as you said, as white begins to peak, other colors come in, and now gray is that value, as you see in countertops, flooring, even ceiling treatments when you're out in the market.
So to that end, I'm wondering if KraftMaid has broadened their finishes. Have they added more finishes? I don't mean just replacements. I mean, do they offer more than before?
Yes. In fact, we recognize that finish is a very important decision point. In fact, Susan, through our research, we find that it's the #1 factor consumers reach out for a new kitchen. They're looking for a color change or a color that's not currently in their kitchen today. Once they get that direction figured out, then they move into style, hardware, glass. But first, the trigger is the color they want.
Mm-hmm. And where do you see consumers looking at or finding that inspiration as a rule? What's touching them to go toward one color or another?
I used to be able to say it was a print magazine, then it moved into television. Now it's really a variety of sources. For example, they might be watching Property Brothers on HGTV, or they may be out at a restaurant and be inspired by the ambiance of that restaurant or hotel. They may have a page, and someone they don't even know has shown them something or pinned something that's shown up on their board that now they're inspired. So inspirations can come from all different places, and that's why we've been doing work with Pinterest and Houzz, the two most premier areas for the consumer to shop and get inspired, because then they can see their inspiration on Pinterest and then find someone such as one of us as professionals to work with on Houzz.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So you are then seeing the consumer being more open to different possibilities, and do you not see them? I mean, you know, a trend is a really funny. It's a funny thing. It's a funny word, because on one hand, there are trends. We know about the whites and the warm grays, and we know about that. You and I have been in the industry long enough to remember the 4x4s and of course, the glass and the subway tile and so forth. I feel that you don't always know if you're in a trend or if something will be longer lasting. Now, white certainly has been very long lasting. Professional appliances have been very long lasting. But things like tile shapes, 4x4 subway tile, but then which brings us to finishes. And as I just said, white has proven to be a classic. Who knows where it's going now? But what about these other wood finishes, browns and grays? And do you think they will follow a path of going up or down, or be consistent for a while?
Well, I think there are some consistent stain colors we're seeing in North America, including Canada and even Alaska when I was just visiting Alaska designers. Basically, it's that Starbucks at home. The coffee colors, the deep values, perhaps in a slab door, a simple shaker door, really creating that backdrop that is wonderful for those subway tiles or the flooring contrast. And then the other thing that we've been doing at KraftMaid is spending a great deal of time, and we always have worked with our finishes as a way to think about them individually And collectively together, we identified we didn't have enough of what I call the green-brown side of finishes. We had a lot of orange and red value side, but we were really missing that light, warm, green side of the color. So we spent time expanding that whole color range from a multi-step finish such as husk to a clear, clean stain value in that mid-range. You know, imagine like walnut, the rich deepness of that. I call that a green-brown. And then lighter versions of that. And then on the opposite spectrum, you have like peppercorn or cafe that's very, very dark. And that direction has really taken off and doing very well. In fact, we saw it at High Point in the furniture market and now in kitchens all across North America.
That's very interesting. A few years ago, we saw black everywhere. I'm not seeing that. To me, I feel like that had a very short lifespan, and maybe I'm seeing it more in accents, but I'm not seeing it in full-on black kitchens like we saw at K-Biz for a couple of years, but I feel that was short-lived. But when you talk about dark finishes, are you talking about charcoal browns or dark warm grays or dark browns?
Well, definitely that dark stain value where you can see just a little bit of wood tone underneath it. But I agree with you, Susan. Certainly the white and then our new chai value, which will be slightly grayer, kind of a chameleon, warmer than bright white, like our dove white. But what's interesting to me, we just finished the Kitchen of the Year with House Beautiful out in San Francisco.
Oh, yes, I heard about that.
The designer called it the non-white kitchen, or the unwhite. Basically, the cabinetry was our maple onyx, which is black painted cabinetry. The flooring was white, and the ceiling had a beautiful bronze light fixture, custom designed by Stephen Miller, the designer of the whole project. And it was interesting because there was enough light in the room. The black really made a terrific backdrop to bring the greenery and the view from outside into the room. So it didn't feel so unusual. It actually felt very comfortable and warm without it being kind of stark. It had warmth even though it was a plain finish of a very deep black coloration.
But that's also an example of a highly stylized kitchen. I'm wondering if mainstream America has moved away from a black finish. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right that there's not always a large amount of sales in black, but there's always the consumer who likes that black, just like a black car. There are consumers who absolutely love having a black car, and then there's those who would not have that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true.
Or in style, it just may not be the hottest and the widest offering.
Yeah, I just feel like I've seen less of it over the past than I did for a couple of years running.
I can see that as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Also, how do you feel, what do you think about Lightwoods, like those very light blonde or medium to blonde woods? Are you seeing any uptick in those finishes? I think I may be, but if I am, I feel like it's on the periphery. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think from a leading edge, it would be a natural with just a slight wash of gray or white to pick up those warmer climate areas and to accent the wood with also taking out some of the yellow or the brassiness of the wood. I think that's where those lighter values are going, but certainly a light stained color is always in good taste and time. It's basically timeless.
Has KraftMaid added any lighter finishes to say a rift oak or primarily the oaks, which look so beautiful in those light finishes?
We have, Susan, and basically that green value, the brown, the walnut color, lightening it up and having lighter values. Saddle would be a mid-value. Rye is lighter again, and you wouldn't be surprised. Maybe next year you'll see even more values coming from KraftMaid. We always want to stay ahead and lead in the finish area because we know that's where the consumer is looking to get started.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. So Sarah Reep is needs to really put her trend forecasting hat on. And how long does it take you to think about what may be forthcoming, and how do you see what's happening out there? What do you look at?
That's a very interesting question, Susan. It's taken me a little time to kind of step back and say, how do I do it and how does our company do it? There is a process to it. It may not seem like it because it's messy in a good sense. You look at everything. I might be watching a TV commercial or a sitcom, and the people in front of that kitchen behind it is making a statement about color and design, from the automotive colors to home furnishings, to fabrics, to tile, to wood flooring, to window trim, to exterior colorations. There's no one way to get at it. I like to think of the category I'm trying to solve and then relate sometimes the opposite to it. And if you see it enough in multiple categories, like we do track at Color Marketing Group, it starts to make sense that there it is.
Yes, you look to, that's what I try to do too. I try to connect the dots.
Yep.
You try to be aware, and it's like you're a detective.
Yes, and then sometimes a little intuition,
Yep.
some gut, and going for it, and then driving that trend to be even more important than it is today by making it available in the offerings and using it creatively, and having the consumer basically fall in love with it.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it fun?
Is.
It's a real challenge. I have a question for you, Sarah, and that is, what about matte finishes? Is KraftMaid producing matte finishes? Do you see that continuing to be of interest to people?
I think what's the overarching aspect of that is texture. Kind of texture is a big statement versus maybe a great pattern or canvas we saw 10 to 15 years ago. It's now about an iconic shape, a form, a texture, a pattern. It might be rustic wood. It might be a sheen, a gloss, a tone-on-tone. And yes, we have been playing with that. We have created the Suede Finish. We have it on several of our finish offerings, and we'll be expanding that as we go forward. Consumers are looking for different textures and playing with different sheens and textures in the same space. They may have a backsplash that's very glossy in tile, where they want the cabinetry to feel as soft and smooth and low sheen as velvet. So I think one way is not the way. It's having these categories of answers so that we as designers and consumers can mix it together with their Pinterest board and their house pages to make their own kitchen style.
That's a great way to say it, and it reminds me, and it's funny, I've gone to a few shows this year. I've actually gone to 5 design shows this year so far, and luckily, being in the New York area, I can go to the New York ones too. And I have called this year the year of mixed messages. Meaning, exactly what you're saying, mixing smooth with texture,
Yes.
a gloss with matte, different color combinations, maybe bold color with something that's deep and smoky, and neutrals too. Would you agree?
I do. In fact, at the KBIS this year, we showed a champagne bronze. That's a gold treatment to a frame door with glass. So you had the shininess of glass, the matte metallic finish against a wood grain and peppercorn in a lower sheen, and all of that together, it actually felt very sophisticated, and it made it interesting with simplicity. It doesn't have to be, over the top or busy to be elegant and beautiful.
No, you're right. And we think of the less is more, phrase, which really I think is happening now too. And I think people are getting much more sophisticated, and they're paring down, and it's easier to live in many cases that way too, especially in smaller homes. So speaking of homes, the open plan has certainly been something that many people, regardless of the size of the home, enjoy and want to incorporate into their home. My personal feeling as a designer is that I don't see the genie being put back into the bottle, meaning I don't see that walls will enclose the kitchen again. I just don't see that. I think because it's great to have a long sight line of vision. We're intermingling in surrounding spaces more, including the kitchen. I don't think I see that trend going away. What do you think?
I would agree with you, Susan. And in fact, I think our Generation Y, who's out there now in the workforce, they're starting to form their first households. They especially will want that open space, and they're very interested in flexible environments so that they can make room for family members to come visit or a party in the kitchen like it always is. But I agree with you. I think the trend in all price points and in North America is to have that open floor so that people can see and enjoy and not feel so boxed in. And in fact, if the square footage is going to go smaller, we're finding that kitchens and baths are holding their own and not getting smaller. We're stealing space actually from like the dining room or the home office. Now that we have Wi-Fi and everything is so mobile, you don't have to have those spaces just waiting to be used. The kitchen becomes that great room, great experience.
Yeah, that's true, and I have found in recent years that people, and even more so recently, people are paying more and more attention to comfort in the kitchen via comfortable furnishings, more comfortable furnishings. I mean, you know, I don't think a hard chair is so conducive to lingering and chatting and doing work on or whatever, and via lighting is so huge and so exciting, don't you think?
I do, and we've added new lighting this year, the LED, but you know, something else I think is sneaking up on us as an industry, whether it's Delta or Brizo, the automatic faucet, or now KraftMaid introduced at KBIS an auto open waste can. So imagine, you know, if you have things on your fingers or holding the baby and you're busy, you just bump up against it and it comes out to you automatically. I think these kind of technology advances are going to start to really make the kitchen more serviceable and comfortable for the consumer, not just sitting at the dining room table within the kitchen space, but then how you function with it, how you use it, and how it works for you.
Yes, and that's another good point. As you think of the dining area in the kitchen, and you know, everyone loves their islands, and we have seen the kitchen is certainly a social space, and it's more of a social space. Do you feel that the dining area is taking on more space, or are we redesigning it differently? How is that changing within the context of the kitchen?
I think the dining room space officially as its own room is definitely going away. In fact, at High Point, they report they're not making suites as much, hardly any, in fact, because people aren't having the room for the hutch, and that they're building it into the kitchen or extending it out from the kitchen or allowing that table to turn and be a part of the island or be that third island close by the island. And I like for us to think about different heights for that island, as islands are the king in design right now. Everything at a 42 high makes it tough for grandkids and for older people to visit and join in that kitchen. So we have our two largest generations coming out in the marketplace. Boomers looking for their last home space, how they want to live and bring their grandchildren, and then Gen Y creating that environment and probably having little ones around. They're going to want a kitchen that doesn't always have a full 42 high snack bar, which really makes it available for only teenagers and young adults.
Okay, so the question is Gen Y. Do you see them as being interested in sort of high, low quality, a little DIY here? They'll do their painting there, but yet they will want their wonderful KraftMaid cabinetry finish. They'll want their KraftMaid cabinetry in the style and finish that they've got to have, so they'll put money there. Do you see a high-low in terms of investment?
You know, it is true that our Generation Y is just starting out. So to expect them to have the same income level and the spendable income as all consumers is just simply not fair. They're starting out in their careers, but they have a wonderful taste and sensibility palette to their design taste. And they've been raised on HGTV. I mean, they truly have been the small children, now adults, who grew up with remodeling and watching their parents remodel. But in the end, they're not going to want it to be their mother's kitchen. They're going to want it to be their own. Mm-hmm. So depending on their budget, they're definitely going to look for a look that speaks to them and a process that allows them to engage in the process. I think it's very, very important, we as designers, that we embrace them, let them join us, celebrate the things they bring to the table, whether it be on their smartphone or things they want to load or share. They're basically going to be very tech savvy and engaging in our category too. And so if they can't afford everything, they're going to try to get the best and the most to make sure that they don't have to replace it, because it's important that they have quality, something authentic to something they value. And so I think there's a lot of hope for us all here in the industry in that Gen Y loves style and design.
I completely agree, and from my perspective, I wonder if it's also because Gen Y may not get to the heights that the baby boomers got to in terms of the bigger homes. So, you know, earlier in baby boomers' lives. So I feel like Gen Y are happy with their smaller homes, but they want it how they want it.
Definitely.
So you agree with that too?
Definitely.
And good. We have a few more minutes, but I want to bring up another question. And that's about copper. Jeffrey is thinking that he's just not sure about copper. He sees it more of a short trend. And certainly we've heard a lot about copper. What do you think about that? Are you seeing it? Are you seeing it at all?
Not as pure copper, frankly, but I am seeing it from two different perspectives. Remember Delta's Venetian bronze. The sales and the oiled rub bronze appearance has done very well for years, and it's a great look, especially in the rustic style, a little bit of arts and craft, where things need to meld in and blend in better. It's still holding well with the sales. That has a copper undertone, and so when you take away some of the top coat or the finish layering, you will see a tint of copper. Where copper is new today, it's picking up on that rose gold influence we see in fashion. For example, the champagne bronze Vitro Dwarf by Craftmade.
Yes.
When you look at it and turn just slightly with the iridescence, it has a little bit of copper in it, but not bright or loud, almost enhancing the wood tone it's placed with. Sounds
very elegant. Sounds like a real elegant finish. And one other thing before we close out, I want to ask you about the let's call it I call it the healthy kitchen and sustainability. Where do you see that going, and what part does Craftmade play in this area?
You know, it's interesting. I just read an article this morning about the possibility of outlawing antibacterial soaps. You know, just because of some of the chemicals in that soap is perhaps hurting us as individuals and the environment. And I think everything's going to be very heightened and concerned now for a healthier lifestyle, living, food, care, keeping. That can come to the finishes of the cabinet from off-gassing, which we are the lead in making sure we have quality top finishes that perform well as keep us safe, to just even how you do cleanup in the kitchen, or having the support of that auto waste can, that you can balance your life and all the activities you have to do while being safe, healthy, and happy at home.
It's true. And in terms of Gen Y, I have a son and his fiance, both of whom are germaphobes in the kitchen, and I don't know who raised him. I mean, my feeling is that it's good for the what is that? Good for the, I forgot the word, you know, the system inside.
Little germs maybe make you healthy? Is that what you mean?
That's it, yeah, well, something like that. Okay, maybe that's a stretch. The immune system, that's it. I always tell them that. One other thing I want to mention before we close out is that I will be providing links for 2 reports that you have sent to me. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about these 2 reports, these trend reports?
Thank you. Each year I publish Trend Spots, which is identity of the trends that are affecting the design community, especially our craft-made designers in North America, to give them some overview and details of how to design with these trends. I believe today you'll have Modest Mod and Rustique as 2 different style directions I'm seeing in the marketplace, from a restaurant to a home to a touch of stone here and there. we're seeing either simple, clean lines or a bit of that rustic. And I thought it'd be great if the group attending today and following up could have that for their own records.
Yes, I will put those links out. And where can we find you socially, Sarah?
Oh, I'm out there in a lot of places. Definitely Serra Reep Craft Made at Howes, Serra Reep Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, and of course all events that involve craft made.
Okay, that's terrific. Sarah, thank you so much. You have given us so much information in just a short time, and hasn't this been fun?
It's been great. Thank you, Susan, for including us. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Well, then I'm going to make you do it again.
Okay.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, everyone.